Okay. It is June 11th, 2025 at 4:37 p.m. And we call to order this meeting of the Bonner County Board of Commissioners with the Planning Department and Prosecutor's Office for an update. Director Gabel.
The first item on the agenda is public comment. We do have one person online. If you'd like a comment, please raise your hand. All right, I don't see anything on my side. Next is announcements. We don't have the prosecutor's office here. Mr. Wilson had to step out. We do not have any pending litigation items that I believe you want to discuss outside of what's already been emailed to the board regarding the file that got remanded from court. So outside of that, I don't have any announcements. We can go right into the packet and the updates. So I'll try to be brief. Feel free to stop me if you want additional details on any of these items. There's your list of meetings. There's a whole lot, especially the first half of the month with the board. As you know, you're going to the BOEs, so I had to cram everything, as with everyone else, in the first 15 days of this month. So you're welcome, and we'll see you in July. From there, we have building location permit numbers. You see the total is 612, and that's only in the first 5 months, so we're well above where we were this time last year. We're likely to hit similar numbers in total BLP applications by the end of the year. Moving on to Title 12, we've seen, of course, a decline a little bit in numbers, as I've mentioned a couple times already this month. Of course, land divisions, we had a decent amount of applications come in May due to the lift of the moratorium, so you see MLD numbers came in a lot higher, as well as a couple extra family exemptions to last year. So we have a total of 50 quasi-judicial. That is a little bit skewed because 7 of those are the amendments to the area of impact. So those are county initiated as well as some comp plan stuff. So that's an indicator as to the staff load, but some of those are either self-imposed or county run initiated projects. So those area of impact are all next Monday. If you haven't started diving into those 7 staff reports, please let me know whenever you do, and if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Let's see. So I just a little bit skew on those numbers, just kind of a heads up. And then the administrative numbers are much less than last year. Again, that's due to the vacation rental permits year after year, so a decrease there. Public record requests, so we're at 165 so far this year. This indicator of staff load, a little bit less than we saw by this time last year. There's the financial analysis for all the tiny numbers you see on the screen. So far for the year total, we're at $733,000 in revenue, where we budgeted $925. I think I mentioned this last month that we're likely going to get a higher number in our total by the end of the fiscal year, probably close to 1.1 million is what I'm guessing. And then we're actually under on where we would be for expenses. So we're at just over $1 million, and we have $1.5 million for the rest of the year. A lot of that is in the A budget, where we had some personnel shifts, and we had some openings that lasted for several months as we tried to track down and hire the right people. Questions on that before I move on? I think we kind of went over this pretty in depth at the budget meeting, so I figured it was kind of fresh on your guys' mind. And as I mentioned then, I'll give you an updated estimate at the end of June, beginning of July, as we get better numbers. Yeah, exactly. Okay, compliance numbers. So, Katie's not here. So she pulled in 7 closed zoning violations and 2 new ones in May. That brings our totals as you see there on the screen. And then for Title 11 violations, so we had a number more of those came in, 14, 4 of which were closed, and 6 BLPs were submitted from that 14. Okay, so from there we have land use regulation update. We have a couple of things here to just give you an update on, and then Commissioner Domke, you wanted me to add this to the agenda of 12267 public hearings. I'm trying to remember why. I have this portion highlighted about written statements. And and I was putting this packet together, and I know I put this in there sometime in the last month, and I remember you telling me you wanted to discuss it at this meeting,
Testing
and
the
I could
memory.
not tell you what it was about or referring to. So while this sits there pending, I can give you an update on a couple other things.
Okay, thank you.
The Chapter 6 revision, so that's your subdivision ordinance, that was workshopped with the Planning Commission. They gave me a lot, through a couple different meetings, gave me a lot of input on what they wanted. I have, they've completed their review of it. It's on staff now to finalize our revisions to that and schedule it for a hearing. I'm hoping to have that hearing in July with the Planning Commission, and then probably August or September with the board. You guys have a busy August, so probably September. With that, we also have changes to chapters 1 and 2 that the board workshop for a couple of months. We reviewed it with the Planning Commission. They made a couple other minor adjustments. And then I need to finalize, again, the version of that and then submit it for a hearing with the Planning Commission. So we'll probably do those 2 hearings back to back or on the same night or maybe within 2 weeks of each other, and then to the board late August, early September. So that's the other Title 12 changes that I'm working on. Commissioner Domke, do you recall this at all? I stalled there for a good 3 minutes to see if
That was great.
Your
Thank you.
memory
Yeah,
jogged.
well done.
Yeah.
I do not remember the specific item. I know there was one item that we have discussed where at times during our public hearings, in particular, the applicant may present a fairly lengthy, PowerPoint slideshow or something like that. And then we have all of this new information that we weren't able, to review in advance. I know it's part of the hearing process, but I think it's challenging then because sometimes we're wanting to go back and review the data and ask questions and include it in the deliberation. I was just trying to figure out if there's some way, while still complying with the quasi-judicial hearing process, if we can require that the applicant submit sometime prior to the actual hearing, whatever they're going to be presenting, so that we can have it included in our board packet, so that we have the data in front of us to be able to review and reflect back on. Because when we have some of those long presentations, I know in one of them, I'm sitting there going, could you go back like 18 slides? And I'm trying, I remember there was something I had a question about, but I don't have it in front of me, and I can't remember the exact language that you presented. And it's challenging for us to deliberate on data that we can't go back and easily reference. So I don't know if we can give that some future consideration about maintaining compliance with how we have to actually hold the quasi-judicial public hearing, but also try to allow the board to have as much of the data as possible in a more easily accessible format for us to reference during the hearing before we render a decision.
So is there a reason why that can't be done, or is there a reason that we shouldn't have prior knowledge before the hearing that wouldn't allow that, or?
I think especially on appeals, I think we should codify if that's a standard we're going to impose, to say all presentation or all information presented to the board is due a week before the hearing or something along those lines. I just know, especially with appeals and especially with attorneys, they push the envelope on this, and they want to come up right to the moment and say, oh, the day of, here's my presentation.
Give us a
Like,
sales pitch.
we ask them
Yeah.
to get it to us beforehand. Sometimes it's minutes before or even during the hearing. It's like they'll try to hand us a USB or like, hey, can I get on Zoom with you guys so I can present? It's like, oh, you have a presentation. Good to know. So I think if we codify it, we can then hold it to a standard. So
I would like to do that because I think otherwise it behooves the applicant to give the board as much of the information in advance for our consideration and reference back during deliberation. I think it's appropriate on behalf of the board so that we're not in such a difficult position, and I think it helps the applicant because they don't want, if I feel like I really can't make a well-informed decision, I'm going to say I'm not willing to make a decision. I want to continue the hearing, and that's not in their best interest. So,
Right, because we can do that.
you do have a member of the public with their hand up if you want to take public comment on this idea, Commissioner.
Sure.
Okay. Ms. Crawford?
lies with this, Reg Crawford, Bonner County, but I missed the opening because I was on the last meeting and I didn't hear an update if this was going to occur. So if you want me to, I'll just wait till the end of the meeting and comment, or should I comment now?
Is your comment specific to what we're reviewing at this time?
It's very similar, but not specific to this particular item.
Okay, then do we have public comment at the end of the agenda?
We had it at the beginning of the agenda, so.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say it is pertinent to this then. How's that? I'm grateful that Commissioner Domke, that you have brought out how important it is to have information in advance and how crucial it is to have that information so it can be given a quality review. And that is an issue I've been dealing with today. I emailed you about it, and I've been emailing back and forth about it, Jake. And I just want to hope that this also goes both ways for the public. In 2 weeks, there's a subdivision hearing, and yet there's no staff report available to the public until 1 week in advance. And the public has no idea what the staff report will say. And we're also supposed to have our comments into the zoning commission 1 week in advance. And so if the comments are due the same day the staff report is released, we don't have an opportunity to do that, to get those comments in. So I just want to say that I think it's a great idea that you guys are provided with this information and that the public is as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else online that I can't see?
Mr. Wilson has joined us, just a heads up. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good, Bill.
Perfect, thank you.
We have some questions on the last here. Never mind.
I apologize for having to step out like that. It's kind of a personal thing I had to take care of for a minute.
Understood. Director, if you'd like to continue.
Yeah. So the other thing on the agenda here is an update to Title 16 Agricultural Protection Area Ordinance title. So that's that's not what's on the screen here. Oh, what I'm doing. There we go. The APA statute is changing. I had a brief discussion with our APA commission on Monday. I haven't had the time to craft the red line version, so they've added a meeting to the agenda for June 30th, to which I told them I would have the red line version. I'm on vacation starting next week on Wednesday. I'm only taking 1 week, so but I will get the red line versions to them before that time. So just kind of a heads up. I think it came out of our last update meeting, and since then I've had a meeting with them, and they're eager. They're very excited. They're working on bylaws and a couple other things too. And I heard that Bonner's Ferry or Boundary County has an APA application, or it might be getting an application, which I think would be the first one in the state that I'm aware of.
We might be the second one.
Oh,
I've had a community member speaking with me now, who's eagerly awaiting the update to the code after the July 1st state change. So we may have our first county application sometime this summer.
Perfect. Well, that'll be fun. So June 30, I hope to have a meeting with them where we finalize the code, set it for a July hearing date with the board. No, it won't be July. You guys are too busy in July.
BOEs.
Maybe we'll do it on a Saturday afternoon. No, I'm just joking. Okay, comprehensive plan. So we've held a hearing on the land use component that was continued to August. I think the continued date, as Commissioner Domke and I discussed later, or in the hall or in his office, that hearing date it was continued to doesn't work. So we will renotice that and publish it. I still haven't finalized. I need to finalize those dates and get it published so people are aware. We're going to workshop. So the Planning Commission since then has had a hearing on the updated implementation component, which is the goals, policies, and objectives of the comp plan. So they went back and reviewed all of the previous adopted components and the pending land use component and made changes to the policies, a lot of changes to the policies, and a lot of goals and objectives were moved to the policies component, given that our state statute and now our ordinance refers more to policies as the driving force of change, right? So they took that, just as they said they would for the last couple of years, and made a whole bunch of updates to it, held a hearing, made some minor edits to that, and then I just got approval for the recommendation letter, so you should see that in your inboxes, as well as the draft that they proposed for the recommended changes. So we will workshop that with the board and then hold a hearing sometime in August or September along with the other ones. So hopefully I don't remember the date, Brian, you and I came up with that. I want to say it's like the 23rd or 27th, something like that. So I will get those dates solid and get it put out there for public review. So that's your changes or updates on the comp plan, feedback and review of previous land use decisions or
I
land
think it's
use
actually
findings.
August 25th.
August 25th?
I think that's the current target date that
I
we're
think
going
that
to
was
try to
right
move
between, I
to.
think that's at 23rd and 27th, so 25th? That's
Close.
Okay. Feedback on land use decisions. I don't have anything for the board other than kind of what we just discussed at the last hearing, this reason statement worksheet. You'll see this again tomorrow. We have an appeal tomorrow of a file. That's a living document, as I think Bill mentioned during that last hearing. If you want to see changes to that, if you want to see more detail or code references or links to code references or something along those lines, just let us know. When I spoke with or emailed the planning directors around the state about this reason statement and this new case law out of, I think it was Ada County that the Supreme Court ruled against. And that was November, I think that was November that Supreme Court case was decided on. So it's really changing the face of land use decision-making. We will be implementing this all the way down to as well as with the board, with the zoning commission and the hearing examiner. So when things get appealed to this board, you have a reasoned statement behind their analysis rather than just guessing as to, reading between the lines of the findings of fact. You're going to have a worksheet provided or prepared by staff based on the deliberation of those boards. So hopefully those decisions are a lot more detailed to the board on appeal. Okay. That's the only feedback I have. Do you have any feedback for me on staff reports or previous decisions?
I think it's just reinforcing the comment that came up, I think Commissioner Ford made it during one of the hearings, that if we could have the reference to whatever applicable code there is or statute right there within that worksheet, it's going to make it a lot easier for us to.
It would.
Okay.
And again, I don't know format-wise if it makes sense to put it right in the yes/no boxes or to have it as an appendix we can just quickly flip to, but I kind of like having the condensed yes/no references on a couple of pages, and then if we could just have whatever the applicable codes are behind that to quickly go to and not have to pull up from another document.
Yeah.
Okay.
That'd probably be better. I mean, we're figuring this out as we go.
No,
so
So you'll
I agree with that.
Can you guys? I'm just as discussing this format that this is something that Alex and Jake and I all kind of we're using a template from recent parts from Boundary County, but I think that you guys were able to walk through the criteria today was really what I thought it was really pretty good.
we're having a hard time hearing you now, Bill.
Can you hear me now?
And you're kind of cutting in and
Yeah,
out.
I got the gist of it, and my sense was it was pretty easy to walk through. Obviously, we just have to make sure we're stating the whys with the yes or no.
It did highlight the difference between it gives each one of you guys opportunity when you disagree, you explain why. And at least that, fine too. You know what I mean? Like it really clarifies the position. And that's helpful.
Okay.
Every other word, but we understood.
Yep.
So I think we're making good progress on that, and we can keep refining it as we use it and come up with more ideas on how to make it better.
Okay. So what we can do, one easy thing in our code is you can, when you go to print or create a PDF, you can select code sections. So
Yeah.
one thing staff could do is just include an appendix or include an attachment to that reason worksheet. Some staff will copy paste code sections into the staff report, so you'll see the whole code. some of them don't. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's better to appear in the staff report that you refer back to, or to include it as an attachment to that reason statement. So
I think it'd be better at the end of the reason statement, because when we get to the point that we're trying to make that final deliberation and decide, to have to keep flipping back through 20, 30, 40 pages of the staff report to find it would be more challenging versus if it was all sat at the end. And
It is
in my
challenging
opinion,
flipping back and through,
Yeah.
back and forth through everything sometimes.
All right, so one thing to note is it's gonna get really complex when you get into conditional use permits, because the standards for those isn't just the specific standard, right? Take like a cell phone tower or communications tower where we have that half page or 3/4 page of standards that we review against. But it's also the performance standards for all uses to include sign standards, landscape, lighting. So there's a whole nother section that we'll include in that. And I started, when I was creating the one for tomorrow's hearing, of copy pasting the whole code, and then that worksheet got really lengthy. I think, Bill, we're hearing an echo from you.
Bill, somehow you're logged in twice.
There we go. I switched over to my phone because my computer was not doing a very good job. So hopefully this works a little better.
Yeah,
Sound better.
much better sound quality.
Okay, thank you.
The stereo echo is a little odd, but now we're good.
Yeah, I closed out the computer version.
Yeah, I can appreciate it at times. It's going to get really lengthy, but I still think just having it right there to be able to reference it will be beneficial.
Okay, so the action item, anything else on the reason statement? The action item on today's agenda, let me pull up our packet back up, is this, sorry, I thought I hit go. Planning to make commission task list. So the planning commission was sharing some, I don't want to say gripes or complaints, but consternation over trying to understand what the board wanted as far as the priorities of work, if you want to call it that. So when you look at like urgency versus priority, how fast you want things to happen and when. So I threw this together as I wouldn't say it's a complete list, but it's definitely a list of all of the things the Planning Commission has been charged with and are working on or haven't started yet, and it's on their docket for review. And I sent it over to Commissioner Domke. He added the urgency and priority to it, and then requested, or maybe we had a discussion about adding it to this agenda to get ratified by the board. What I failed to do when I sent this to you the first time, Brian, was to add how far along are they in the process of some of these? So when we put this together, the Planning Commission said, oh, well, we've already done a hearing on that, or that one's like, we're already done and it's ready for a hearing, so there's not a whole lot of work left on it. So to give you a little update as to each one of these components and where they're at, the implementation component, as I mentioned, has already gone through a hearing with them. That was June 3rd, so that'll come to the board. So that one's, it's an urgency of 5 and priority of 5. Really, it's done with them. It's coming to the board. So the Title 12, Chapter 6, that's the MLD Family Division and Waiver Land Division. They also included some changes and adjustments to the short plat, a couple other minor edits throughout the code, and redefining subdivision. So that, it will be scheduled for a hearing. The Title 12, Chapters 1 and 2, as I mentioned before, that one will be scheduled for a hearing. They're done with all the workshops on that. The Title 12, Chapter 3, the RV Park use table changes, that's already been done, and the hearing is already done, and that's a hearing scheduled at the board, I want to say July 27th or 25th, somewhere around there. So this is that first and only hearing in July we have at the board. The House Bill 180E1 broadband statute, so that was workshopped with the board, is that yesterday? Man, it's been a long week. Yesterday.
I was wondering what day it had happened as well.
Yeah, so I think Commissioner Domke has a very rough draft version of some ordinance. I think we had this on the agenda now that this has been at least initially designated as the highest urgency and priority with the Planning Commission. This is it's on their docket to start discussing. I requested Commissioner Domke not just work with staff, but appear or make a minor discussion point or show up to have the discussion with the planning commission next Tuesday at the meeting, to which he agreed. And then we have the changes to chapter 3, zoning descriptions and use table review. This is to go back to the frustration the boards had over the language and kind of the ambiguous or not really refined language of our zoning ordinance, and leaves up for a lot of room for interpretation. Take like the steep slopes or the characterized by arguments. So I've added that, and the planning commission is aware, and they especially want to get to the use tables and make a handful of changes to these tables, what I've kind of heard from that group. And then the Title 11 changes as well. So the board's completed their review, and then the planning commission hasn't made any action or done any review on it. So
I have a question on that, Jake. So I know it's hard to come up with all these things and try and put urgencies and priorities on it because they kind of all are, right?
Yeah.
So did you say that you were wanting to change the broadband issue, or is that left
No.
at a 1 and a 1?
No, I didn't assign any of these numbers. I'm giving you an update to the status of each of these projects.
Okay.
So for example, 1 is complete.
It says urgency.
Right.
Urgency and priorities, right?
Yep, so,
So 1 is a complete?
Oh, you're getting a scale. Like, how urgent is it on a 1 through 7
Right,
scale?
that's what I assumed.
So
And
that's
I'm
the
just
first
asking
thing they
why
should
it
be
seems so
working.
low.
Yeah. Oh, that's the first thing they should be working on. So
1
it's
is
the
high priority.
highest. Yep.
Oh, I was taking it.
yeah.
Oh, you
Yeah,
went
sorry,
backwards.
yeah, it's not the value of the number. It was do this first, number 1, then do number
Okay.
2, then
Yeah.
do,
Okay. It's like, that's low on the totem pole, huh?
yeah.
Okay.
So if you agree, my perspective was that's our highest priority.
Yeah.
And I accept and understand the planning commission's frustration with, we've asked them to do so many things that it's only appropriate for us to also offer a prioritization of those things. So they
Right.
know what order to try to address them in, because they can't do it all at once. That said, I did not realize how far along they were with some of these items. So it sounds like, thankfully, some of these are gonna come off their list really soon.
Yeah.
So they'll have less they have to focus on.
Okay.
And I think that's gonna be really important, since I think we realized yesterday that the broadband issue is such a heavy lift. Like, that's gonna be quite a bit of time, I think, for them to really work through and come back with some initial feedback for us.
So I know, for example, their major concern after the implementation component was looking at chapter 3 and looking at the descriptions of the zoning descriptions, right? Because they've just got done with all of the comp plan designations and all the descriptions, and they're eager to align our zoning descriptions with the comp plan descriptions. And they have a whole lot of stuff in their heads of how they want to do that, and they want to start debating it. So, but if there's a higher priority that the board places on something else, they also know that they're appointed by the board and they want to fulfill obligations as presented to them by the board. So this just gives you an idea, or gives them an idea of what your urgencies and priorities are
Right.
for them, so.
I think that's helpful for them.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I think we should still indicate that the broadband issue is the highest priority. And I can appreciate the efficiency of them wanting to move into the chapter 3.
Yes.
But at the same time, the board has not yet adopted the land use component and map. And so some of that work might be premature, and they might be asked to change some things or rework some things, and so it may not be as efficient for them. So I think focusing on broadband first and then tackling chapter 3 might actually be more efficient and effective to what we're trying to accomplish right now. Just given what the board's schedule looks like and when we're gonna be able to.
Oh, a quick question on that broadband. How efficient do you think they can be coming up with something before we actually have to maybe entertain the idea of hiring a general? I love that.
That's a good question.
You know, and then possibly changing things that have already been done on their behalf. I don't want them to move forward doing something and then we do something over here and then we come back and say, oh, thanks for your work, but now we got it. So I don't know what they're working on or what we're asking them to work on, I guess. Or is that the proper thing to do? Should we keep working on it? Should we keep working on it? And then discuss whether or not we need to have a good policy written by an attorney that deals with that. I just don't know what the process is. I
And
don't want to ask
yeah.
them to go backwards and do things twice.
I think that's a great question. And right now, I could see arguing it both ways as far as, do we
Which one
ask?
goes first?
Yeah, do we ask the planning commission to come up with what they think is a good framework that works well within our county code, our current county code for this? And then ask an attorney to go through and clean it up to make sure it's defensible and appropriate, fill in any gaps? Or do we ask the attorney to do something and then have the planning commission
Implement that.
review it to see how well it conforms to our current code? Bill, do you have an opinion? So, Bill, two questions for you. One, do you think, based on your background of knowledge and experience and whatever other knowledge and experience we have within our prosecutor's office, do you think it would behoove the county to have special outside counsel to assist with developing the changes in language to the ordinance and code surrounding telecommunications and broadband infrastructure? And if so, then do you think it would be more beneficial to get them involved in drafting language before or after it goes to the planning commission?
Well, first of all, let me see. I think I know that there have been other examples of jurisdictions who've utilized specialists because this is such kind of a hot button topic. So if the board was inclined to want to go find somebody who specializes in nothing but, wireless technology and ordinances, I think that's probably something that you could pursue. I don't pretend to have any real specialized, other than my general knowledge of land use planning in the state of Idaho. I have pretty good general knowledge there, but nothing out of the ordinary as it relates just specifically to this topic. So if there is a specialist out there who kind of markets him or herself as being able to draft kind of bespoke ordinances for this topic, then yeah, go for it. I don't have a problem with that. As to when the right time is, I guess I don't know if there's a right answer, right? I mean, either one of them could get you to the same place. But I mean, if you are, you might think that if you're really inclined to go hire a specialist, that person's going to want to do it their way. And I don't know if it's going to make sense to do a bunch of legwork if it only turns out to be that it's maybe not, it doesn't fit neatly with whatever that person, their experience has shown to be the best kind of language possible. So, yeah, I don't know. I'd probably lean just towards getting the consultant earlier in the process and then presenting that person's findings through to the planning commission. But I guess I'm not like married to that position. You could see it the other way as well.
So in other words,
Yeah. I tend to agree, though, that I'm going to look at, obviously, I'm not going to speak for the planning commission, but given the kind of feedback we've received from them about the land use component, I don't want to ask them to do something, have somebody else make significant changes, and then have to bring it back to them. So based on that experience and their feedback, I'm going to anticipate that they would prefer that we have somebody else's work brought to them for them to review and offer suggested changes to, and then for us to decide whether or not to adopt their recommend, instead of having to go back and forth through them
I don't
multiple
want to have
times.
to put them through that.
Yeah, is that, Director, would you think that would probably be
Yeah, I don't think any of them
better received?
I don't think any of them claim to be experts of this type
Yeah.
of ordinance writing. I know we have one who's a retired attorney who
Right.
is really good at interpreting, but he also says over and over again, he's not a county attorney, so he doesn't want to give legal advice. So I think the
Yeah.
more direction and clarity you can give them and resource, especially with something so specific and polarized as this topic
I think
is,
we need to
Yeah.
help them.
I think that would be better.
And the more I consider it, I think their best use of their area of knowledge and expertise is they're really familiar with our code.
Yep.
And so if we get the expert's opinion on here's the best way for the county to position itself from their national knowledge and perspective. And then our county group gets to use their expertise to say, and how do we massage that to fit best within our county's code and work with other aspects of our county's code that that expert may not understand and, relate to the nuance of how certain parts of our code reference one another and why that's all important. As I've been learning the hard way with my draft, the things that I'm missing.
I don't think it would be fair to tie the expert attorney's hands by things that we've already done, or I think we need to let him or her do what they do best, and then we figure out how we're going to implement that into our.
And it'll be perhaps, simpler and better that if we just give them the draft that I've done, just again, like we talked about, to say, here are the things we're concerned about and we want to address. We don't know the best way to do it.
Yes.
You can scrap all of this and do something different. Just make sure at a minimum you address these types of concerns and issues, and then anything else we're missing, you add. And then from there, that could be the draft that goes to the planning commission.
Yeah, I think that might be the right.
So
route.
based on that, maybe the best thing to do would just give the planning commission on this coming Tuesday an update to say our intent is to solicit, select, and work with an outside legal counsel specialist in this area. And once we have a full draft document that prepared by them, then the board will give that to the planning commission for their review and recommendation.
Okay.
Is that?
Buy them a little bit more time to do other.
Does that, so Bill, does that make sense to you as well then?
Yeah, that sounds perfectly appropriate.
Is seeking out some experts to assist us something you could help with?
Yeah, I think so. I'd have to, I don't know anybody who holds themselves out specifically on this topic, but I'm sure they exist. And maybe we can try to source that person and see if they, I know that we've already, I've heard a mention of a statute or an ordinance that was passed by Dalton Gardens, and I think that they might have been helped by someone who specializes in this topic, and maybe we can find that person.
Yes, that has been presented by the public, and I believe I have that information in an email, so I'll look for that and can forward that to you. And then if you could see if there are any others like that particular attorney, so that we could decide if there's more than one to consider.
The right person.
Yeah.
Just in case that person's not the best fit, if there's more than one. But at least that would be a starting point. And again, we don't have any of the details at this time other than what we heard from a community member, but that community member indicated that they spoke with, I believe the attorney's name is Andrew Campanelli, that worked with Dalton Gardens. And they indicated that they asked him if he were to work with Bonner County, what the cost would be. And what I heard them say was that to do something similar to what he did for Dalton Gardens, it would be around $8,500, which sounded very reasonable if in fact that is the case, which we would need to confirm.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm happy to let somebody else who, don't threaten me with a good time. I'm happy to let somebody else take a little bit of the load off. I'm all for that.
Okay, well, I will look for that contact information for that particular attorney who we've been told specializes in this area.
Yeah, 100%.
And then, if you could seek out getting some additional information from him and then determine if there are any other attorneys that specialized.
Approach it like any other, we try to get a retainer agreement or a letter, and then outlining the scope of work. And then, I have plenty of experience with working with outside counsel on specialized projects. So we do that all the time.
Perfect. So I think then you and I could work together to bring a proposal before the board for their consideration and approval with regard to hiring special outside counsel.
Yep, sounds good.
Does that sound good, Commissioner? Great, thank you, Bill. I'll be in contact on that. Then I'll go do my email digging and see if I can find that information.
Okay. Commissioners, I don't mean to jump ahead. I don't know what the agenda looks like, but I do have a quick update for you guys or a request in executive session. So, and I'm trying to coordinate some childcare stuff. Is there any way we can move the meeting ahead to that purpose unless we have other pressing topics?
This is the last agenda item, Bill.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So then I think we are at that point. So then, just to confirm for the planning commission task list, do you need any additional information from us, Director?
Are there any other changes to that urgency and priority that's was drafted there? So
I think the issue is, it sounds like half of these tasks are almost ready to come before the board.
Yep.
And the fact that we do not have something actionable based on our current discussion for the broadband for them at this time, then
Maybe that remains high on the priority, but not on the urgency yet because we
Yeah.
don't have that outside.
so sounds to me as if, because our top three, one is on pause for them, and the other two and three are already ready to come before us.
2 and 3 is ready to go before the planning commission.
Okay.
And then 4, the Title 12, that's already been done with them. So it's really the bottom 3 that are left to be worked on. So the broadband statute, the zoning descriptions and land use review, or land use table review, and then the Title 11.
Okay.
review.
So then if, I would say, the priority 6, the Title 12, Chapter 3, if, so long as the planning commission understands that there may be some rework required because of final board adoption of whatever condition the land use component is in at that time, if that doesn't cause them pause to start working on that, I don't have an issue with them working on it as long as they understand that.
Well, given it took them over 12 months to get through the land use component, and a lot of that was done on the descriptions, I don't think they'll get done with the zoning descriptions in the next 2-3 months. I'm guessing it'll take a good 4 to 6 months to get through the zoning descriptions and the use table changes. So,
I just don't want to cause any undue consternation on their part if they're asked to have to rework some of that draft because
Yeah. I think they'll just pivot after you guys make a decision on the land use component.
I'm fine with that
Yeah,
priority
I
if
think
you
they'll,
are.
The only question I have is on the Title 12, Chapter 6 stuff.
Yes.
Is that possible to maybe move that up a little higher on the priority list so maybe we could finish ahead of schedule?
So it's on staff to finalize our red line version of that code and present it to the planning commission. I hope to get it to the planning commission in a hearing in July. And if I can fit it in with the board in August, then I'll get it in August. Otherwise, it'll be early September. But I think our deadline on that is October 1st. So we'll get it done before then for certain.
Which is why we're targeting September, to be sure.
If I can get it in with you guys in August, I think that's going to be the hardest hangup, is getting on the board's agenda, because your meetings are,
Right.
yeah, it's hard to, the summer months between BOEs, as you know, BOEs and budget, it just gets really booked out, so.
I'm noticing that.
Yeah, every summer, it's a good time.
All right.
So moving on to executive session.
All right, executive session.
Bill, you want to, we just end the Zoom and then you want to join, have us give you a phone call?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so which executive session category?
Pending litigation, Bill, is that what we're talking about?
He's gone. Placing lifting of notice of title.
Yeah, I think it's under pending litigation is what we have on the agenda, if I remember.
So the F for litigation? Okay. Commissioner, are you willing to make a motion?
Are we ready?
Ready.
I make a motion that we go into executive session as per Idaho Code 74-2061F litigation.
Step down from the chair in second. Any discussion?
Nope.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Thorn?
Yes.